It never ceases to amaze me. This level of profit. People are just so corrupted by profit, is what I would say. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I agree.
Yeah,
Money can be the true root of all evil. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Or you can choose, or see, or the other end of the other side of the story
Yeah.
is you can choose to only help people, and then you know that the profits that you make when you help the right people and did the right thing, you know that you're supposed to have that money if you only did the right thing. So if you would only
That's
do,
true.
so if you would only do, if people, if companies and if everybody would just do the right thing, then they would be able to help so many more people, and they would have so much
Yeah.
more money, and all they would have is good karma, backing them up and
I
protecting them in
totally
the end.
yes.
But people
We
don't get
see
that.
more of those. Yeah, we don't. I mean, I think it gets so tough at the top there that if you what I think happens too is if you were that kind of person before you got the power and authority, I think the power and authority just really magnifies who you were from the beginning. So if you're like this greedy executive now, I don't think it's something that you just happen to be. I feel like that is something that you are growing into. And then this position of power just presents itself. And now you are this greedy executive and you just want to make some good money for yourself.
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
in the end, when um in the this is, by the way, this is marked as explicit. It's podcasting. I'm allowed to get a little bit colorful with my language once a year, as we say in American English. So then, but the thing that people need to understand is, in the end, hey, you know what? When how I mean, how do I put this pretty bluntly? I mean, really, really, when shit hits the fan, you're going to lose all that greed, all that profit, all those gold coins that you think belong to you.
Yeah.
You're done. You're done.
I
Look,
know. I know.
so it makes no. I mean, I guess. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good person or not. I guess, but who knows? It just makes no sense to me when you know that your whole world is going to come collapsing down eventually. Why would you want to start that? Uh,
I think
I,
you know it never makes I don't know, it always just never makes sense to me. But I guess for some people when they're going through it, it makes sense for them at that point. And
I guess it does. I guess
yeah,
you know what? I guess when you're, and the other thing is the concept of being a narcissist. I guess when you're such a narcissist
yeah,
that your brain just doesn't work that way. I mean, we see, in history that we've had to lock up a lot of famous people. I mean, who've done
exactly.
really evil stuff. I mean, take the Madoff case. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, the Maid case is another
Bert,
really, really bad
See,
one.
yeah, but I don't know. We're comparing all stuff that's really, really bad. It's hard to compare which is really, really, really bad. But I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine stealing? Let's say the figure, at least it was probably $50 billion. Can
Yeah.
you imagine? Like, how can you think that you are not going? How can you think that's going to work? I don't know. You have to be a special type of evil, a special type of narcissist for your. It really no. I'm gonna push it this far and say it's really some
Yeah.
sort of a. It's some sort, and no disrespect to people who are suffering, but it's some sort of a mental illness, literally, where something is
Yeah.
just wrong with your brain, and you literally, your brain doesn't comprehend that that's not the right way to go about living. I'm convinced about that. I don't know, but
I think you have to have lost your there's a part of you that you have to have lost to
yeah.
continue in that path. And then I wonder too if because they maybe have gotten away with it so much that they think they're invincible to the point where, it doesn't scare them as it used to maybe when they started, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. But what I'm saying is, it takes what you experienced, and we look back at history, some of these really evil things that have happened through corruption over the years.
Yeah.
There's what I'm saying is there's a level, there's like two different levels of it. There's a level of just being a narcissist, but then there's this
Yes.
extreme, extreme, extreme level of narcissism that you saw, which is, I don't know. Some of those people, I guess, can't be helped. I guess so.
Yeah, I know.
There's no save. They can't be saved. You know.
It's so unfortunate
It
though.
really is. But the light at the end of the tunnel is that we have good people like you who realized that this needed to be corrected. And so to anyone, so I say thank you for that.
Thank
And now that you've been living in California, what do one of the things that I always love to ask,
yeah.
people who grew up in other countries, what do you really think of, life in the United States with all the evil you saw? What do you really think of life here as a whole in the United States?
I'm so glad, first of all, to have the opportunity to have lived in several places in my lifetime. And I really do feel like the US, we have such great opportunities and the ability to do such great good in this world. At the same time, I feel like sometimes we are our worst enemy in the sense that I, some of the things we do because of the money and the resources we have, I don't necessarily agree with it because sometimes then you see some people living in really poor parts of the world and they are so content and happy with what they have. What I feel like we lose it here is the sense of appreciation because and the contentment in having what we have and the ability to do what we do. And because when you visit Africa or other places where perhaps life is not as developed or as really the possibilities are not as available to them as they are here, I feel like the people there, they appreciate life in a different way than we do. For my daughters, for example, that's one area of growth that I would really love them to experience is to travel as much as they can. And that's why I'm a big proponent for traveling, exposing yourself, because I feel like the more you travel, the less ignorant you are and the more you're able to relate to different cultures and different people. And for me, honestly, I think it would be this solution to also the racism that we experience is the exposure to different cultures, really.
Could be. Very, very
Yeah.
well could be. And I mean, back to what you were saying, what you've talked about on your podcast several episodes with the issue of discrimination,
Yeah.
which is, in my opinion, such a huge issue for blind people and such a huge issue for people in the disability community. And did I mention such a huge issue for everyone else?
Yeah.
Because people have the ability to discriminate. So, I mean, that's really a survival skill. I mean, you said that you feel that, if people travel more, they might be, more likely, that might be an end all to racism and things like that. Well, I certainly hope you are correct. I hope you're right. But people, as a simple survival skill, will be able to tell if someone looks different from them. So I'm not, I mean, you could be right. I hope you are. I think it helps. But
Yeah.
as long as the human mind is able to tell that someone looks different, then we'll be able to discriminate and then from there be ignorant and, then the circle will never end. I don't know. Objectively speaking,
Yeah.
I don't see an end. I'm pretty, as you can tell, I'm pretty opinionated, pretty blunt, and a pretty direct guy to deal with, and I don't really see any end to ignorance, any end to problems with people, because some people, just like before with the evil people and narcissistic people, some people are just bad people. They truly are bad people. And then we have other
Yeah.
people who are genuinely good people. We also have that too. But unfortunately, we got a lot of weird people these days. A lot of people who are sometimes misinformed, other times
Yeah.
disinformed. It's a huge problem, but I completely agree with you. I've done a lot of traveling and it's helped me.
Isn't
So
it? Yeah, I
it,
feel
it's
the same way
really
too.
it's really
Yeah.
beneficial for me. I volunteered in St. Lucia,
Yeah.
and that's a wonderful place to be, and it was really a
Wow.
really good experience for me. I did a study abroad in England. I've been to France 3 times because my second language is French, And
Whoa.
yes, yeah, and
Bonjour.
exactement bonjour. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
love
and
that.
yes, it's a very interesting society. But in France, no one speaks English there, so everyone has to speak French there. So that's
Yeah.
a good skill to have, to be able to speak several languages. But I certainly hope, that with podcasting, I hope that we can educate one more person. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the goal. If we can get one person to play this episode, well, that person is probably the one that needed to hear it, is what I like to think.
I,
And really, I've found that although podcasting is slow, I've found that my downloads have slowly creeped up. I found that people have noticed, and they all seem to be the right people. And
yeah.
the only people in my Aaron's Opinion group on WhatsApp, which you're going to be added to in just a few minutes, and I'm sure
Yeah.
and I know you're going to join it, is
Yes.
you'll get to meet all of the guests on my podcast, all the guests from around the world who've made this podcast what it is. So, I
Wow.
mean, really, you have to know, you have to try to talk to the right people and figure out what the right stories are to tell. And then when I'm able to give you, just like tonight, just like this episode, I was able to give you the chance to tell your story, to tell some good stuff, to tell some scary stuff, some bad stuff. But that's a story worth telling. And that's a story that people deserve to hear. So that's the story that I was pleased to help you write, basically, as a audio author or a podcaster, which is what this
Yeah.
is. And that's really what how I view, the art form and the beauty of podcasting, which it truly is beautiful. Um, and one of
I
the most
love that.
interesting things about talking to people from all over the world that I find is that there are podcasts from every single country. So, how many other Kenyan podcasters have you been talking to lately from Kenya?
You know
Who?
what, Aaron? I just haven't found the Kenyan podcasters, honestly. And I'm sure they're
Ah,
out there, but I just haven't found it. Maybe because I'm just getting started. Yeah. I launched in August. So,
of this year.
yeah. So
Hmm.
I'm just getting my feet wet into the podcasting world, but I
I'm
would
so pleased, and that's why
love,
I'm so
yeah.
happy. I'm so happy to have you on here. I'm so happy
Thank
to be
you.
probably one of the first people who has interviewed you. I'm so happy to have that
Yes.
privilege.
Yes, you
I
are
think
actually
the
the
first.
first one. Yeah.
I
Thank you so much.
had a feeling because I hadn't ever heard of you. I was like, Unearthed with Christine
Yeah.
Babu. I was like, who on earth? Who on earth is that? I'd
I
never heard
know.
I'd
I
never heard of you.
know.
I just thought, oh, that's probably just some other narcissist talking about how great they are.
I'm so glad you stopped and just gave me a chance, you
And
know?
that's, you know what, and that's what you got to do, guys. When you're on
Yeah.
Facebook and you see podcasters boosting their posts, push that profile button, send them a message and say, "Hey, you know what? I want to learn a little bit more about what you have to say," or, "Hey, I care about you. What do you want to
Yes.
talk about today?"
Yes.
Open the conversation. Talk to
Thank
people
you.
because
Thank
you
you.
never know how much of an important conversation that person has to tell. In your case, and in every case,
Yes.
every conversation is the most important, because this for you and forever is the most important podcast for you, because it's the memory, it's this positive experience that I was able to paint for you and give to you. And that
Thank
I think
you.
and that I think is truly the greatest gift. I would wonder
Yeah.
you should be in all of the podcasting groups on Facebook, because there are tons of
Oh.
tons of them. They're
Are
out of
you
control.
serious? Oh my goodness.
There's
Okay, you know
tons of
what?
them.
I'm gonna now do active searching on that. I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, I'll
So,
add you to I'll connect you with all the.
okay, thank
I
you.
will certainly send you a couple of links to a couple of the really good ones where you should come and introduce yourself. And in fact,
Okay.
you could even, I mean, I'm mostly saying this out of my own honestly, out of my own entertainment. But
Yeah.
you should post in K Swahili and tell them that, and
Ooh.
tell them and write in the Swahili language and try to
Ooh.
see if someone can write back to you. And so I would be
Swahili, yeah?
fascinated to see if there are other podcasters who podcast in Swahili who are
Wow.
looking to connect. The reason I say it
I love
is
that.
that every podcaster out there has a bunch of secret listeners, people who are
That is so
secretly listen
true.
who are
That is
secretly
so
listening, who are
true.
too afraid. So I
Yeah.
would be I would be interested to know if there is a secret podcast out there that only podcasts in Swahili and that they're looking for guests and looking for to unearth a Christine Babu.
You know
Who knows?
what? Thank you for introducing me to this world. I would never have guessed that there's such a large community out there.
It's I haven't guessed it either, but then I see podcasts